And is starting. So, hi everyone. My name is Leanne and I am here reporting with Sharks for Kids. And today we are joined by none other than Dr. Toby Daly-Engel from Shark Conservation Lab. I talk too fast. It's a New York thing. And I'm really proud because she's actually from my alma mater. She's working at Florida Institute of Technology and focusing on preserving populations of elasmobranchs, which are sharks, skates, and rays, and other fishes by studying molecular ecology and evolution. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and stop and let her take it away and tell you all the wonderful projects and research that she's doing. I would just ask that you go ahead and mute your microphones so that decreases the feedback. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you so much for the amazing introduction. I'm Dr. Toby Daly-Engel. I'm an assistant professor at the Florida Institute of Technology, and I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for tuning in. I wanted to talk to you guys from my office because I have some cool like shark jaws and stuff that I'll have to show you next time, because turns out I also have a tiny small child who wasn't feeling very well today. So I'm actually talking to you from my house. So what you see behind me are things that I have in my house. So first of all, I wanted to thank Leanne for having me here today. I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to share a little bit about my research and what I'm interested in as a scientist. I also wanted to tell you a little bit also about what I do and how I got here. So I do a combination of research and teaching. I actually really love teaching. My whole family is full of teachers, and so that's partly why I started studying sharks. And I also like doing research, so I do a combination of research. Sometimes I go out in the field, which means getting on a boat, and I actually catch sharks and take tiny DNA samples from them. Doesn't kill them. And then I bring those samples back to my lab. And by combining all of the techniques from the water and the boats to in the genetics lab using fancy equipment to study actual genes and DNA, I can find out about where sharks disperse to, meaning where do sharks swim when they swim? Are they going 10 miles? Are they going 100 miles? Are they going nowhere? What helps sharks figure out how to move from one place to another? And how do they reproduce? So I'm interested in reproduction. How do sharks have babies? Because that is really important to figuring out how to help keep shark populations around. So I'm going to show you some pictures and talk a little bit about shark reproduction. But first, I'm going to try and figure out how to share my screen with you guys. So give me a second.
You're going to make sure you're watching, okay? If you have shown up at this point, we'll allow you a donut, but nobody else gets a donut.
Yeah, there you go. I was going to say it's on the left.
Can you see a picture of the shark?
And then you're allowed to.
Or do you see me?
Screen is dark.
Screen is dark. It says Google Hangouts is sharing a window. That didn't work, huh? No, it did not work.
It was there at first, but then now it's a black screen.
I am screen share. Are you seeing anything at all? Still blank?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so you can see this view, but not view.
I think because it goes on presenter mode, maybe.
Ah. Huh. Okay. Sorry. Hang in there, you guys.
No problem.
I don't want to put it on, like if I do this, it disappears, right?
Yes.
Okay. So as lame as that is, maybe I should just do it like this.
Okay.
Is that?
Everybody can see that? Do we get thumbs up if everybody can see that and that's okay?
Thumbs down.
All right.
Thumbs down.
Cool beans.
You can't see it. Oh, if I click down here, maybe. There we go. We can see that. Thumbs up.
Okay.
Okay. Now we'll just have to go to the right one. That was the wrong, that was actually the wrong presentation. Okay. Are you with me?
Yes.
All right. Sorry, you guys. All right. So this is me. We already talked about me. We don't need to go into it, but those are the two things I do. I get to play with the sharks sometimes, and sometimes I'm doing DNA work in the field, but both are fun. All right. Now, students, this is a question for you guys, and I know that I can't hear you because I think you're on mute, but we'll have a chance for questions later. But what I wanted to talk to you first of all was show of hands, who thinks this picture is real or fake? So raise your hand if you think this picture is fake, if it's photoshopped. You know, like when you cut a picture up on a screen and you bring the shark a little closer to the kayak to make people think. Show of hands. All right, put your hands down. Now, show of hands, people who think it's real. Okay, put your hands down. The answer is actually this picture is real. Kind of looked, I thought it was Photoshop when I first saw it because I thought to myself, no way would that shark get that close to that person, and that person should be really scared. But it turns out this is what happens when you study sharks. So this person in the kayak is actually a scientist studying tagged great white sharks in the Farallon Islands in California. And while they were following the sharks around, the sharks got really curious and started following the scientists. So sharks can get curious about stuff. They're almost like dogs, and they can also be kind of smart. So this is a great white shark. And I don't know about you, but when I think about sharks, that's the picture in my head is the great white shark, right? Jaws. But turns out there's actually a lot of different kinds of sharks. And not only are there a lot of different kinds, but some of them are really weird. So everything that you see on the screen right now is a shark. And I know that's very strange. Woo, zooming in. So all of those weird sharks, from the carpet shark to the megamouth to the saw shark, are sharks just like any other, but we don't know much about them because they're not the famous great white. So I like to study all sharks, not just the great white shark, although I have gotten to do that before too, and it's super cool. So things that make sharks unique, meaning different from all other fish, are first that they're adapted to a lot of different environments, meaning they're in deep water and shallow water, warm water, cold water, and even some rivers. They're apex predators, and I bet a lot of you know what an apex predator is, but it's a predator at the top of the food chain, in charge of keeping all of the other species and populations healthy. They have 6 senses, which is all the senses that we have, plus 1, which is their electrosense. They have really amazing immune systems, and they have cartilage rather than bone in their bodies. So they have skeletons, but they don't have bone like we do. They have cartilage, which is the stuff in your ears and in your nose, the very end of your nose. So sharks are very light and flexible because of that cartilage. And also how they reproduce makes them different. So most fish lay eggs, meaning most fishes are oviparous. So they have a lot of eggs, and they're really, really tiny. Sharks, though, reproduce like humans do. So you know how humans get pregnant and have babies? Well, sharks do it just like humans do, most of them anyway. And we call that viviparous or live bearing. So it takes a lot of energy for female sharks to have babies, just like female humans. And the babies come out kind of looking like this. They're called pups. They develop in the mom's uterus. They attach to the mom via either an umbilical cord, just like a human baby, or they stay in mom's uterus, but they feed off of a yolk sac. Most sharks only have about 5 pups, and it takes over 2 years for them to have another litter. They don't stick around and care for their babies. And baby sharks can take as long as a human to grow up, 7 to 15 years, or even more. And they can live as long as a human too, 50 to 100 years or more. So shark populations are slow to grow, and they're not very big compared with other fish. And that's a problem because sharks are disappearing from our oceans. And I apologize because some of these pictures are kind of hard to see, but a lot of people have noticed, including a lot of scientists, that sharks are disappearing. And part of that is because people like to eat shark fin and make it into shark fin soup. Part of that is because their meat, just like a lot of other fish, tastes really good and people eat it for dinner. And also, a lot of people like to catch sharks for sport. So I'm in Florida, and that's a big, fun sport in Florida, which is fishing. There's a lot of people who fish. It's really fun to fish. We catch all sorts of stuff here. But catching sharks in tournaments can damage them more than we think. Even just catching a shark that you don't, that you let go can actually hurt it a lot, more than humans realized. So shark fishing tournaments, of course, where sharks are caught and kept are bad, but even just turns out catching sharks on a line can kill them, even if you release them alive. Sometimes they can die later. They're really fragile. This is just people fishing for sharks. So another reason they're killed is as bycatch, which is something that you're not fishing for when people are fishing for other things like tuna. And a big reason why why sharks are disappearing is because we are a little bit scared of them sometimes, which is normal because in the movies, sharks are scary. Sharknado, Jaws, Deep Blue Sea, Open Water, Shark Attack, Megalodon, Redwater, and of course, Jaws. So a lot of people are scared of sharks because of what we see in the movies, which makes total sense. It's totally natural to be scared of sharks because we don't see them very often and they can bite you. So if you see something like this in the water, you don't think dolphin, whoops, sorry guys. The first thing you think, if you see a picture like this one, is shark. But in reality, what's in this picture, in this wave, is probably more like a dolphin. So here's the dolphin. Whoop. Obviously, I meant this to kind of pop in like a cool animation. Sorry, guys. So you see something like this picture of this surfer in the wave, and you think that that's a shark. Because look, it kind of looks like one. In reality, it's probably a dolphin. But because sharks are so freaky and they're in the movies all the time, of course, you think it's a shark. So if you like sharks, like I like sharks, because remember, if we go back to the beginning, remember, sharks are actually really cool. They're really different from other fish. They're apex predators, so they're important for the ocean. And if you like the ocean and you like sharks, then I can maybe tell you a few things that'll help you not be so scared. So let's talk about shark attack. Shark attack is actually a lot more rare than people think it is. So humans have been keeping track of how many sharks have ever attacked people. I mean, of course, we don't know every single shark attack that's ever happened, but if anybody hears about one, then we've been writing them down. So for a while, actually, and recently there's been some numbers put together about shark attack. And really, only about 3,000 people that we know of have been attacked in all of human history. Now, of course, that's probably because there are shark attacks that we don't know about. But in recent history, anyway, we've gotten really good at keeping track of shark attack. Most attacks are not fatal. Actually, only about 1 in 10 shark attacks are fatal to humans. In this country, there's 10 to 15 attacks per year, maybe 1 fatality every 2 years, and that's kind of a generous assessment. So shark attack fatalities are actually even more rare here in the US. And turns out only 3 species are responsible for most attacks on people: bull sharks, tiger sharks, and great whites. Shark attacks, we think, are a case of mistaken identity. So here you have a person on a surfboard, which is not a shark's natural prey. And then look, you have a sea turtle. From below, if you were a shark, you might mistake the surfer for the sea turtle. But from looking at the size of bite marks that are left when people are attacked by sharks, we think that maybe it's smaller sharks that are most responsible for attacking people. And that's because when they're young, they don't know how to tell a person apart from something like a sea turtle. So here are some myths, things that are not true about shark attacks. Well, most attacks are fatal. We know that's not true. Sharks bite at dawn and dusk. That's not true either. It turns out most shark attacks happen between 1 and 3 p.m. And that's when people are in the water. Because shark attack does not depend on sharks. It depends on people. Wearing bright colors does not attract sharks. Sharks don't stay in one place for very long, and they're not mindless predators. In fact, compared with a lot of other things, there's not a lot of danger to you or me from sharks. Things that kill more people than sharks are things like texting. Well, you can read them for yourself. Dogs kill more people than sharks. Selfies, TV sets, toilets. Toilets kill more people than sharks. I know, it's crazy, huh? All right, so let's talk about shark conservation. Now, conservation is the science that both scientists and everyday people who aren't scientists but who are interested in animals can do in order to protect those animals. So I'm really interested in figuring out how to protect sharks because I think they're amazing. So even though sharks only kill about 5 people per year tops, humans kill over 100 million sharks per year. And so that means a lot of sharks and also stingrays are at risk for extinction, and also something called extirpation, which is when a local population is extinct. So there might be something like, say there might be tiger sharks in the Pacific Ocean, but if they're gone from the Atlantic Ocean, that means they're extirpated. So hammerheads and great whites and things like that are endangered. So if you're worried about shark attack, one of the things you can do if you see a shark is just honestly don't act like bait. Sharks are kind of like lions. They're made to prey on the older prey species, the ones that are kind of sick or slow. You know, a lion doesn't go after the strongest, fastest gazelle because it doesn't want to bother chasing that gazelle down. The lion is just going to get the first gazelle that it can. And sharks are like that too. So if you see a shark, act just like a healthy human. So stand up, be calm, take a deep breath, actually watch the shark, and don't splash around a lot, because it turns out if you see a shark, you're actually lucky. It won't bother you. It probably just wants to run away. It's probably scared. So just stand there, don't splash around or act like bait. Don't harass it or poke a shark or mess with a shark, even if you think that it's dead. And you'll have no problem at all interacting with these amazing animals. If you really love sharks and you want to protect them and do more to conserve, don't fish for sharks. If you are fishing and you find a shark on your line, cut the line and let that shark go as fast as you can. Even catching it on a line briefly can kill it because they're actually fairly fragile animals. Support laws and tell your families to support laws that protect sharks. Don't eat shark fin soup, and don't buy things like this container of shark cartilage pills, and tell your family members not to buy products that are made from shark because they don't work. So that's the end of the pictures that I have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. That's a lot about my research. We can also, if you're interested, talk about being a scientist and other aspects of life. So.
Well, thank you so much. That was a wealth of so much information. So what I'd like to do right now is go ahead and take some questions. So we'll start with Miss Luong. I'm not sure how you specifically say your name. I'm so sorry. But Miss Luong's class from Our Lady of Rosary, which is actually in Calgary. So if you want to go ahead and come on up, you can unmute your mic and ask some questions.
Am I still screen sharing, Leanne? Can you guys see me?
Nope, it's you.
Okay, good.
Hi there, this is Mrs. Leung.
Hi.
This is Elijah. She has a question for you.
Hi.
How many species of sharks are there?
Good question. How many do you think there are? Can you guess?
Take a guess. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't have to be right. Doesn't have to be, you don't, and you can also, you don't have to guess if you don't want to. You can say pass.
50 maybe?
50 species?
50 species? There's actually, that's a good guess. There's actually more than that. There's, if you count stingrays, which are really just flat sharks, same animal, different shape, just kind of like a pancake. If you count all of those, as many as 500 species.
Oh.
Yeah, things like just sharks, only sharks by themselves, probably closer to 250. But you know, that's one of those things that we don't know. We're still discovering new species of sharks. Isn't that crazy?
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Why don't we go ahead and get 2 more questions from the same class?
Oh, okay, sorry. All right, Brendan, can you come?
What is the oldest living species of shark?
Good question. Probably the oldest living species that we know about. So species that have been around since before the dinosaurs are the deep, deep water species. Things like six-gill sharks. And six-gill sharks are unusual, and I bet you probably know why. It's because of their name, the six-gill shark. They have 6 gills. Most sharks actually have 5 gills, but the 6-gill shark has 6, and that's because it's so old. It used to be back before the dinosaurs. Most sharks had 6 gills, and some sharks even had 7 gills. I'm going to show you a picture right now. This is a 6-gill shark, and let's see if I can do it. Screen share. Come on. Can you see?
Here we go.
Can you see the picture of the 6-gill shark?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So it's a little blurry because this shark is alive, but you'll notice it actually has 6 gills. Most sharks have 5. It also has these weird green eyes. That's because it's a deep, deep water shark. So the cool part about the 6 gills is that they are so old. That's why I like to study them.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brendan. This is Scarlett.
Some great questions so far.
Hi, Scarlett.
Are female sharks or male sharks bigger?
I'm so sorry. I can't hear you.
Louder.
Are female sharks or male sharks bigger?
Female.
Is there a reason why?
Yes, because female sharks have to hold the babies. So the bigger the female, the more babies she can hold inside.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. So why don't we go ahead, and so that way we make sure we can get a few from each class. We'll move over to Miss Wilson's class. We have some 4th graders from Freehold, New Jersey at Applegate.
Cool.
Oh, I'm sorry. 1 second. Here she comes.
What's your favorite shark species to study?
Such a good question. I have so many favorite sharks. It's really hard. I really like the 6-gill shark, the picture that I just showed you, because they're so weird, and because most people don't see them very often. But I also like tiger sharks because they're so pretty. They just have the prettiest stripes, and they're also massive and kind of scary looking, like battleships. There's just something really neat about them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Go ahead.
Are piranhas similar to sharks?
Good question. In some ways, they're similar to sharks because piranhas are also predators. So piranhas are, they eat meat, they attack smaller animals than they are, or sometimes they get into groups and they attack bigger animals. But the piranha, that's really the only thing that piranhas have in common with sharks. Although they are both fish, piranhas are bony fish. They're actually more closely related to things like goldfish than they are to sharks. So they're both predators, but piranhas are bony fish. They have real bone in their skeletons, not cartilage like a shark does. So they're more like the fish that I showed you at the very beginning of my talk that had all of those clouds of little tiny larvae babies. Piranhas are kind of like that.
Okay.
They're also really cool.
Thank you.
Good job.
What advice would you give someone if they wanted to study sharks?
Do it. That's an awesome goal. I think the best thing that you can do, if there's anything that you really want to do, like if you have an idea, and if you don't know what you want to do yet, that's totally okay too, because you guys have plenty of time. No pressure. But if there is something that you want to study like sharks, the best thing to do is just keep a hold of that idea and work as hard as you possibly can. A lot of people have things that they love like sharks, but you know, that's not, or being a veterinarian or being an engineer or an astronaut or even things that aren't in science. And being a teacher, that's another good goal. Anyway, the point is you can do anything you want as long as you're willing to really work your butt off. And that includes studying sharks. So keep, working as hard as you can in school, talking to your teachers and people who do the things that you want to do when you grow up, and find out how they got to where they are. So for me, it was just, I always liked sharks since I was a little kid. And I didn't get the best grades, but I was willing to work harder than I think some other people who maybe weren't as willing to kind of get dirty and and clean up like shark guts and gross, dirty refrigerators with rotten fish in them. So,
Awesome. Great questions. So how about we take a few questions from Miss Cameron's class. They're Hammond Elementary. We have 6th and 7th graders.
Hello.
From BC.
Grade 4 and 5.
Sorry, our morning announcements just started. Could we be the last questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll go right back to Miss Wilson's class.
We'll be right there.
Go ahead, Sean.
Hello.
Hi.
There he comes.
What is the biggest shark you ever researched?
Good question. Great whites. Yeah. You want to see a cool picture? Here. Show you a picture. I'm figuring out this screen sharing thing. And so I got to take a trip not that long ago to a place called Baja off the Pacific coast of Mexico. And I got to actually see and tag great white sharks.
In Guadalupe, correct?
Yes, that too. This was, okay. Screen share. There's my screen. Can you see the picture?
Is that you?
That's me.
Epic this.
I know, isn't that crazy? So that was a pretty big great white shark. There was another one nearby that was like, gosh, probably 12 or 14 feet long. And I also once got to study a big tiger shark, a tiger shark that was literally 15 feet long. So
Awesome.
it was pretty big. And it doesn't sound like a lot, like, oh, 15 feet. But boy, when it's an animal that's that big, kind of like hanging out with an elephant, and you don't realize it until it's right next to you and you're like, huh, that's a big shark. but they're also kind of just so amazing that when I was doing it, I didn't think about, wow, that's a big shark. I thought about, oh my God, that is such a cool shark.
Awesome. Well, I got word that the announcements are over, so I want to make sure that we're able to get some questions from Ms. Cameron's class.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so Summer?
When you're researching sharks, do you always do it in a cage or open water?
That was the first time I had ever done research in a cage, that picture that I showed you. So I almost never do. In fact, the only time you would need to do research with a cage is if you were mostly wanting to watch the sharks. So in that case, what I was doing is I was actually using a spear gun underwater, but instead of shooting a pointed spear, what the spear gun was designed to do, it had a little, almost like a little spongy thing on the end, almost like steel wool. It was designed to take a little DNA sample from the skin of the shark. But normally what we do in my lab is we go out into the water in a smaller boat, much smaller than you would need for like a cage. And we actually put a fishing line down in the water, and it's specially designed so that the sharks, when they're caught on the line, aren't killed. They can actually swim. You know how sharks mostly need to swim to breathe? So these lines are specifically designed to catch the shark but not let it die. And so we come along with our boat and we pick up the line in the shark and we put a tag in it. We take a DNA sample and we let it go. Normally I don't need any type of cage. I think that's something you mostly see on TV, which is funny because the one time I got to work with a shark cage, it was because the research is probably going to end up being on TV. So that was cool for me. I'd never done that before.
Our next question. Do you think a megalodon is real?
Do you think a megalodon is real?
I'm sorry?
Louder?
Do you think the megalodon is real?
The megalodon is definitely real.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was a real ancestor of sharks like great whites now. So there's actually a lot of sharks that used to be on Earth. A lot of sharks, just like there are a lot of other animals that are ancestors of the animals we have now that are currently extinct. So megalodon is an extinct species of shark. It probably was around until, I want to say 50,000 years or so. So before people came along, the megalodon had already become extinct, before the sort of modern human evolved. So maybe some ancestor of ours might have seen a megalodon, but it would have been a long, long time ago. Is that what you meant by real?
Yes.
Okay. Here's a question for you real quick before you go. Are megalodons alive now?
No.
No.
Extinct.
No, they're definitely extinct. Unfortunately, because I think it might be pretty awesome to see a megalodon. Probably pretty scary, but
Terrifying.
hopefully you'd have a big cage.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Do you have another question?
Sorry, Lily, but Lily, she just answered it, the megalodon.
Oh,
Do we have another question? Austin, do you want to ask yours? Quick. Faster than that, Austin.
Have you ever seen an ostracoderm skeleton?
Oh, no, I haven't, but I've always wanted to. So I don't know if you guys heard his question. He asked if I'd ever seen an ostracoderm, which is a type of extinct fish. And they had these incredible, massive, bony heads. And you can see them in museums. I've only seen pictures. I've never actually even seen one, but they're huge. They're like just the head alone is like the size of a car, one of those little fat round cars. But it's massive. And no, those are placoderms are more, or ostracoderms are more related to other types of fish rather than sharks. But yeah, that's another example of an extinct fish, just like the megalodon.
Awesome. So how about we go ahead and we can go back to Miss Liang's class and see if we have any questions from there.
This is Nikita.
Hi.
Say hi.
Hi. How old is a shark when full grown?
Can you say that? I'm sorry, I can't hear you that great.
How old is a shark when full grown?
Well, that's an excellent question. And the short answer is we don't know. So all of those different sharks that I showed you pictures of, they are really different from each other. And all the sharks that we know of, all 500 species of sharks and rays are super different. And that includes size and age. But one thing we do know is that sharks live a lot longer than we thought they did. We thought that sharks were kind of like other fish, like they had a lot of babies at once and they didn't live that long. But turns out, no, sharks live a long time. And that's because they do grow so slowly. They have to live a long time. And so it could be that sharks live as many as several hundred years, anywhere from 200 to 400 years for some species. Most sharks probably don't live that long, but most sharks probably live about as long as a person, maybe even longer.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I see that we're losing one class. So we're going to just go ahead and say goodbye to that class. And we'll stick if
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. At this time, we'll take one more question from Miss Liang's class.
This is Xander.
Hi.
What is the most popular place for sharks to be found?
The most popular place for sharks to be found?
It means like shallow water or like deep water or warm water. Good
Question. Well, just about any water can have sharks. In fact, some sharks can even go into lakes, but mostly not. Sharks really like salt water. They can be shallow, but they prefer it to be a little bit deep. And the thing to remember about sharks is not only can they be anywhere, but they're really shy. So you're not usually going to see a shark, even if you happen to be in the water with it.
Awesome. So at this time, we're going ahead and say goodbye and say thank you very much. One, for all the students who are interested, and thank your teachers for joining us. And then, of course, a special thanks and everything to Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants and Sharks for Kids for teaming up together. Check both of us up online and see any updates to the curriculum. And of course, thank you very much, Dr. Toby, for going ahead and joining us today and sharing all this information.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.